Hi everyone, welcome to the 3.4 video. As you watch this video, we're going to be taking some notes in your packet, and we are going to be talking about the effects of oppression on Peter's life. Once you're done taking these notes, you are going to read chapters 6 and 7 in While the Locust Slept. The main question we are talking about in this video is what is oppression and how does it affect our main character, Peter Razor? So oppression, this is probably a word you've heard before, but even if you don't know the exact definition, I'm guessing we're all familiar with this concept in our lives and in the world. Oppression, this is the definition I want you to write in your notes, is the unfair use of power over a group of people to keep them in a state of disadvantage. So take a second to write this down. And I also wanted to talk about kind of a longer, more in-depth definition that comes to us from Courageous Conversations, which is a program that Robbinsdale Schools actually uses to help us teachers understand oppression and how it impacts our schools and our students. And this definition is that the systematic subjugation or control of one social group by a more powerful social group for the social, political, and economic benefit of the more powerful social group. So oppression is all about one group trying to take power and control while putting another group of people down and keeping them away from power. Oppression is much more than just one person kind of bullying or being mean to another individual person. This is about systems in our country and in our world. So when I say systems, I'm talking about things like our healthcare system, our housing system, education system, policing system, like all of these things that help our world run. But we can think about the way that these systems in our country have been used to give some people power and take power away from others. For example, I want you to think about the social issue you made a podcast about during semester 1. And some of us chose to make podcasts about our policing system in the United States and how policing disproportionately impacts communities of color and Black communities specifically. And so that would be an example of a system of oppression. I want us to right now return to our author, Lorraine Hansberry, who wrote the play A Raisin in the Sun. I know I've been talking about A Raisin in the Sun a lot recently, but in addition to being an amazing author, Lorraine Hansberry was also an activist and someone that spoke out a lot about oppression. And she shared this quote, "It really doesn't matter whether you are talking about the oppressed or the oppressor. An oppressive society will dehumanize and degenerate everyone involved." So what she's saying here is that obviously oppression is harmful for the people who are being oppressed because their power is being taken away and they are having disadvantage in their life, right? But an oppressive society is also harmful for the people doing the oppressing because it takes away part of your humanity and your empathy and your ability to see other people as equals, equal human beings. A second quote I want to share from Lorraine Hansberry is she says, "Obviously, the most oppressed group of any oppressed group will be its women who are twice oppressed." And this gets us thinking about the idea that we all have multiple parts of our identity and that we might experience oppression from one part of our identity, but gain privilege or not be oppressed because of another part of our identity. This leads us into the very important concept of intersectionality. So intersectionality is a term that this woman, Kimberly Crenshaw, came up with. And intersectionality is this idea that we are all made up of lots of puzzle pieces of different identities, right? We are made up of our race and our gender and our religion and our class status and our age and if we have disabilities and our sexual orientation. All of these things go into who we are, right? And we are not just one of those things. We are all of those puzzle pieces interconnected. Each person has unique puzzle pieces of many different identities, just like this picture is showing us. All of those things make us who we are. And so intersectionality is recognizing that these different parts of our identities are interconnected and shape our experiences with oppression. So some of us might experience some oppression because of our race, but not because of our gender, or maybe because of both race and gender. So our experience with the world is shaped by these different puzzle pieces and how they connect. One example I wanted to talk about for intersectionality is this movie, the Barbie movie. I'm sure you remember a couple summers ago, this was a big blockbuster hit. And the Barbie movie received a lot of praise for the way that it talked about sexism and how women experience oppression because of their gender. But it also received a lot of criticism for the ways that it ignored intersectionality. It really highlighted the way that white women experience oppression and sexism because of their gender, because women are not viewed as equal. But it really was feeling like it only spoke for white women and didn't acknowledge that women who aren't white might experience oppression in a different way because they're experiencing sexism and also experiencing racism. If we think about our character Peter Raiser and kind of his intersecting identities, how is Peter Raiser marginalized? Remember, this word marginalized means like discriminated against or kept away from power, pushed out to the side. So Peter is marginalized because, first and foremost, he's Native American, like we've talked about. And so he is discriminated against because of his culture and because of his skin color. In the 1930s, 1940s, many people were very racist towards Native Americans, and so Peter is impacted by that. He is also discriminated against as an orphan. He does not have connection to his family, which keeps him separated from his culture. He doesn't have relatives or parents to take care of him. He is also marginalized because of his age. He's under 18. In parts of this book, he's a very young child who's being abused by adults at the orphanage or by John at the farm. And being a minor, he doesn't really have that power to take care of himself. We're also seeing that he's lacking access to education because John is keeping him from school, and he lacks access to money. And so these are all things that make it really hard for Peter to have options in terms of running away or taking care of himself or having any power for himself. As we read chapters 6 and 7, I want you to think about the ways that Peter is marginalized by his peers, like his classmates or other kids at the state school, by adults, so people at the orphanage or teachers or John. And finally, the way Peter is marginalized by systems, like the education system and like the state school orphanage system. Finally, I want to say that because oppression and oppressive systems are things that human beings created, these are also things that human beings can change. I want you to start paying attention to the ways that Peter stands up against oppression and tries to fight back in order to get power for himself. There's also going to be some people that help Peter stand up to oppression and try and change his life for the better. So I want you to start paying attention to those things as well.